Alrighty, welcome to Wayne's Lock Shop, and today we are going to be covering how to install a flush mount or surface mount electronic strike paired with an aluminum style storefront door and panic bar. This is kind of a trapeze style door or panic hardware, and this is a Kaba surface mount electronic strike. Now, even though it's surface mount, even in this application, it's going to take some altering and some cutting to go ahead and install this strike properly. Right now, I'm getting the proper alignment, taking the old strike off, getting the proper alignment as to where the new strike needs to be mounted, and getting ready to cut the aluminum. There's a centerpiece that runs down the frame called the door stop. That door stop is going to need to be removed for the entire length of the electronic strike so that it can be mounted and adjusted and fitted properly. This is also a very unique strike because it only takes a ½ inch of clearance to be able to fit. So it is a very, very flat, very thin, very compact style strike, and that is why we decided to go with this strike. This is a job that John Nolan with Reliance Security and I both tackled. We installed 3 of these strikes on this system, each on doors that have a door operator, and that system will all be tied into the door operator and the security system for the building. So this is a fairly major project. Now that we have the door stop cut, the main majority of it was cut with an angle grinder, scored, vice grips were used to pull it out, and now I have a file and I'm filing down all of the sharp edges. You definitely don't want to leave any sharp edges or something that somebody could get hurt or cut themselves on. So make sure you keep that in mind as you're going about your job. Now we've also created a lot of scarring and scrapes with the grinder, cutting that piece out, grinding it flat. So I'm going to hit it with a little tape and a little Duranautic paint. All I had on the truck was Gorilla Tape for this one, so even though it's a little expensive, we still needed to do it for this, but normally I carry painter's tape or masking tape, blue tape or green tape, frog tape. Now I'm hitting it with a little anodized aluminum paint. They actually sell this paint. There are 2 different finishes, even in Duranautic. There's more of a black Duranautic, and there's more of a kind of a shinier Duranautic that's a little lighter in color. So make sure you identify which color you have and match as good and close as possible. Now that we have the paint and have everything covered up, we're now going to go ahead and go back to mounting the electronic strike. What I'm doing now is seeing exactly where the strike hits the electronic strike. So this is a 0163 from Kaba. That is your anodized metal paint. I actually picked this up at Ace Hardware, so check that out. You're also going to be installing 1/4x20 Allen head screws as your mounting screws. When installing in an aluminum frame or even in a steel frame, I like to have at least 3 or 4 threads in that thread to be able to lock that down. This strike is going to be one of the most abused portions of this entry. It's going to get hit with that door and impacted and adjusted and moved and bumped hundreds of times a day. So you need to make sure that you install that as good as possible. On these aluminum frame openings, I like to install a nut zert on the adjustable side. You could install all nut zerts, but I at least like to have one. And I'm choosing to install the nut zerts on the adjustable portion of it where there's a slot and that strike can be moved back and forth. After the strike is installed, you can install an additional set of bolts where it permanently mounts that is no longer adjustable. So I'm showing how that nut zert works. That nut zert, you can see it, that crimped edge is what it crimps around. So it crimps around the 1/8 inch aluminum or steel or whatever it is, that thin portion of steel, that nut zert or blind nut or whatever you want to call it, crimps around that, and it is by far the strongest option I have seen. It's practically the equivalent of putting a nut and bolt together when you pair this properly. Also note that I've got a Morris nut zert installation tool. The 1/4x20 goes in and it installs it fairly quickly, but it is not required. You can actually install these using a simple bolt and nut system that I will go over later. The hole needs to be 3/8 for this particular nut zert. Also, keep in mind that different nut zerts take different size external holes or different mounting holes. 3/8 is common, but some of the other ones require a smaller or bigger hole. Make sure you size that accordingly before you drill the hole. You saw me with the unibit 1 second ago. That is for the wires to go in. There's a 12 and 24 volt plastic connection on that electronic strike. And the reason I had to open that up wider and actually angle it up was so that that plastic connection can actually fit down into the hole. That's what I was doing with that when I was making that hole. Probably 1/2 inch and then angled up on the side where the wires are so they do not become pinched as you go ahead and mount this strike. Looks like now, yep, let's see here. So you could also, you could do the nut zerts for the top and bottom mounting screws that are adjustable, and then if you wanted to just tap the actual aluminum for the other 2 final resting strike bolts, I think that would be plenty sufficient. You could nut zert them as well, but it's going to be more difficult and there's going to be absolutely no movement after that's done. And if you mess up a nut zert, you kind of really limit your options if you mount it in the wrong location. So right now we're checking to see that the strike is mounted properly, that the alignment is correct, and that everything works nice and smooth. It's good to have a tiny bit of play so that it's not tight. When you push the panic bar, the latch should retract fully before the door starts to actually open and move. Right now I'm drilling a hole in the top by the operator, the door operator, so that the wires can be ran down along the frame and be hidden and concealed and come out to where the strike hole pops out, where we drilled the hole for the strikes. This is choosing your holes and mounting locations is one of the biggest parts of the decision-making factor and what makes a job either clean or not so clean. So there you have it, guys. Mount of a surface mount electronic strike. Even though it's surface mount, it still takes a fair amount of tooling, cutting, and planning to make that work properly. For more information, check out wayneslockshop.com, and thank you to John with Reliance Security for working with me on this project. Go to wayneslockshop.com for more education opportunities.